Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I never thought I'd tell this story out loud, but some moments change you so deeply that keeping them inside feels wrong. This is one of those moments. It started on a night when the wind felt sharp enough to cut skin and the city lights looked colder than usual. I was standing outside a closed grocery store, holding a cardboard sign I never imagined I'd hold in my lifetime. On it were the words I'd practiced in my head 1,000 times but still hated seeing written down. We need shelter, please. I'm a former Marine. I used to wear a uniform that made people nod with respect. I used to believe that if you worked hard, stayed loyal, and did the right thing, life would meet you halfway. But life doesn't always follow the rules we're taught. After I got out, things unraveled slowly at first, then all at once. A bad business decision drained my savings. Medical bills finished the job. My wife passed away 2 years ago, and suddenly it was just me and my little boy, trying to survive in a world that didn't seem to care how strong you used to be. That night, my son was asleep in the back seat of our old car, wrapped in every blanket we owned. I stood outside because I didn't want him to see me asking strangers for help. I kept telling myself it was temporary, just one night, just until I figured something out, but the truth was, I was out of ideas. Pride doesn't keep you warm, and discipline doesn't pay for a roof when the bank account hits zero. I heard the sound before I saw them. Engines, deep, steady, confident. A group of motorcycles rolled into the parking lot across the street, their headlights cutting through the darkness like something out of a movie. They parked in a clean line, and for a second I considered walking away. I didn't want pity, and I definitely didn't want trouble. But then I saw her. She took off her helmet, and her hair fell down her shoulders like she owned the night. She wasn't flashy, but she had presence, the kind that makes people stop and listen without her saying a word. She wore a leather jacket with a small, subtle emblem on it, and I later learned that emblem represented a company worth hundreds of millions. At that moment, though, she was just another biker, laughing softly with the women around her. There were 20 of them, all women, different ages, different styles, but all carrying themselves with the same quiet confidence. They weren't loud or reckless. They looked like a family. And somehow, that made the loneliness hit harder. I don't know what made me step forward. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was the fact that I was out of pride to lose. I cleared my throat and held up the sign, feeling every bit of my past life pressed down on me. "Excuse me," I said, my voice rough. "We need shelter, please. Just for tonight." The laughter stopped. Conversations paused. For a split second, I braced myself for the looks I'd gotten before. The quick scan, the judgment, the polite excuse. Instead, the woman with the helmet stepped closer. She didn't look at the sign first. She looked at me, straight in the eyes. "Who's we?" she asked gently. "My son," I said. "He's asleep in the car." She nodded once, then glanced toward the car. One of the women quietly walked over to check, peeking through the window without waking him. When she came back, she whispered something in the leader's ear. I saw her jaw tighten, not in anger, but in resolve. "What's your name?" she asked me. I told her. "I'm Mara," she said, "and you're not sleeping in a car tonight." Just like that. No speech, no conditions. One sentence that felt unreal. I tried to protest. Marines are trained to stand on their own feet. I told her I didn't want charity. She cut me off with a small smile. "This isn't charity," she said. "This is people helping people. Get your son. We're leaving." I didn't argue after that. Something in her tone told me this wasn't up for debate. We followed the convoy to a hotel on the edge of the city, the kind I used to scroll past without a thought. They didn't just get us a room. They got us a suite, warm, clean, real beds. When my son woke up and saw where we were, he asked if we were on vacation. I had to turn away so he wouldn't see the tears. That night, after my son fell asleep, Mara knocked on the door. She didn't come alone. A few of the women stood behind her, holding bags of food, clothes, and toiletries. They didn't overwhelm me. They didn't make me feel small. They sat and listened. I told them everything. About the Marines. About the business that failed. About my wife. About how every temporary solution had turned into another dead end. No one interrupted. No one offered empty advice. They just listened. And somehow that was the hardest part. Being seen without being judged. Mara finally spoke. She told me she was a CEO. That the company logo on her jacket wasn't just decoration. She said she rode with these women not to escape her life, but to stay grounded in it. Each of them had a story. Some had lost everything. Some had built it back. Some were still in the middle of the fight. "You didn't fail," she said. "You got hit. There's a difference." The next morning, I expected a goodbye, a handshake, maybe a small envelope and a wish of luck. Instead, they were waiting downstairs with coffee and breakfast. Mara handed me a phone. "Call the number saved in there," she said. "It's a housing coordinator we work with." Work with. That caught my attention. Over the next few days, things moved faster than anything I'd experienced since leaving the military. Temporary housing turned into a small apartment. One of the women helped me update my resume. Another connected me with a veteran employment network. They didn't just give me shelter. They gave me structure, direction, and something I hadn't felt in a long time, momentum. I later learned that this wasn't a one-time thing. Mara and her group had quietly helped dozens of families, single parents, veterans, women escaping bad situations. They didn't post about it. They didn't brand it. They just did it. The motorcycles weren't about rebellion. They were about freedom, about showing up where help wasn't expected. One night, a few weeks later, Mara and I sat on the steps outside my new place while my son played with one of the women's kids. I asked her why she did all this. With her resources, she could have lived a completely different life. She shrugged. Because I remember what it felt like to need help and be invisible. She said, and because power doesn't mean anything if you don't use it to lift someone else. I got a job not long after. Entry level, but honest work. The kind that lets you sleep at night. The first paycheck wasn't huge, but it was mine. I framed it, just like I framed my discharge papers years ago. Different kind of pride. Quieter, deeper. The women didn't disappear after that. They checked in, not to control, but to support. When I stumbled, they reminded me that falling isn't failing unless you stay down. My son started smiling more, laughing, being a kid again instead of a tiny adult carrying too much worry. People like to believe heroes look a certain way. Uniforms, capes, titles, sometimes they look like a CEO in a leather jacket, riding into a dark parking lot with 19 other women who refuse to look away from suffering. If you'd told me a year ago that a biker gang would save my life, I would have laughed. If you told me it would be led by a woman who ran a massive company and still took time to stop for a stranger with a cardboard sign, I wouldn't have believed you. But here I am, telling you that it happened. And it changed everything. So if you're watching this and you're struggling, hear me clearly. Asking for help doesn't erase who you are. It doesn't cancel your past strength. Sometimes it's the bravest thing you can do. And if you're watching this from a place of comfort, remember that a single decision, a single moment of kindness, can pull someone back from the edge. That night, I asked for shelter. What I got was a second chance. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be the kind of man who deserves it.